I listen to a lot of people who are affected by these evolving regulations. They're not even finished with this, and this is one of the problems in Washington, is that they're not making decisions themselves. They're giving it to various bureaus, commissions, and agencies that are being created. And what I've heard from a lot of folks, particularly in the banking business, and more particularly the smaller community banks, is these regulations are so onerous. And what we're seeing, instead of more competition, and the whole thing was supposed to be to avert too big to fail, you're actually seeing more concentration of the banking business into fewer, bigger banks. And so I think that the regulations ought to take into account how onerous and burdensome they are for the smaller community banks that are so important to customers and communities all across Virginia and throughout our country. The other thing is that they're letting decisions being made by these unelected bureaucrats, and that's again a reason why I'm for what is called the REINS Act, and that is if there's any regulation that has an impact of over $100 million, members of Congress need to vote on it, be held accountable. I'd actually think that Republicans and Democrats will come up with more practical, reasonable regulations than having these unaccountable bureaucracies making these decisions. A prime example is the so-called Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that has no oversight. Their budget ought to be subject to congressional review. My goodness, what other agency has absolutely no review and an unlimited budget? That's absolutely wrong. So we need better governance in these areas. Obviously, we want transparency. We do not want to see another collapse, financial collapse. But the solution is not some of these regulations that are really hurting a lot of banks. And more importantly, some of the regulations that they're putting forward are going to make it harder for perfectly capable purchasers to buy a home. And I've heard this from realtors and home builders, that some of the regulations that they're putting into effect are going to prevent people who are perfectly capable of purchasing a home from getting a loan for it. And so that ends up exacerbating a credit crisis. And so that's another regulation that needs to be reined in and made more logical as well. So like any other regulation out of Washington, they need a lot of scrutiny, and we need more decisions being made by representatives of the people and less by unelected, unaccountable bureaucracies.